CEO of the Christian Employers Alliance, an organization that's equipping Christian businesses to stand firm in their faith while navigating an increasingly complex legal and cultural landscape. As a faith-driven entrepreneur myself, I'm excited to talk about what it means to lead boldly, protect conscience rights, and build companies that honor Christ without compromise. Margaret, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I'm excited to meet you.
Now, I know one of the things that you are here talking about is this brand new project you've been working on, the Biblical Business Index. So tell people what that is to start with.
I joined as the new president at Christian Employers Alliance, and they asked me to create a legislative agenda and take up some policy and things on the Hill. And as I prayed about it, and I was writing the strategic plan for it, I kept hearing from God to bring his name back into the public policy arena. And so I called some great people that I've worked with them on the Hill for many, many years that I knew that had developed scorecards for conservative organizations across the country. And I said, is there a way that I can take your scorecard and manipulate it and add Bible verses and leadership insight to engage CEOs to better understand why this policy is important and, more importantly, what God has to say about it?
Yeah.
So the Biblical Business Index was launched. It's evolved dramatically over the last year since we first came at the vision, but God's really been leading us with it. And we launched last year at the federal level and in 6 states. And this year, we're in the process of 12-state launch right now. We launched Oklahoma yesterday, and we'll relaunch the federal level here pretty shortly in a couple months. And our goal is to be in all 50 states, hopefully by 27. So
the idea is legislators are scored on how their votes sync up with a biblical approach to business.
Yes. So we have right now what we call Bible First Bank. And we have a group of theologians that helped us come up with about 250 different Bible verses. And we align the Bible verses into our 5 core freedoms. We have economic freedom, healthcare freedom, operational freedom, workforce freedom, first freedoms, which is more like religious liberty types of freedoms. And so we have a Bible verse bank for each one of those freedoms. And then when the algorithm and the software is scoring, it will pick out of that Bible verse bank which one matches that piece of legislation the best. And then we have a group of theologians that check it to see if there's a better verse. And then so it's quite a bit of work. Yeah. And then the leadership insight comes from all of that and the impact to the CEO's business, because we want to show the impact of the policy so they can understand the importance. So it's quite a bit of work. It took us about 8 months just to build the Bible verse banks. And as we keep growing from state to state, we have to keep on building. So we're constantly recruiting theologians and working with Christian universities and students that are studying theology to be able to come in and help with some of this stuff. But
Yeah. So this is all part of the mission of the Christian Employers Alliance. So now that we've learned about the Biblical Business Index, for those who are the uninitiated, I'm a member, by the way. So I hope a lot of you listening would think about joining. But for those who need to understand, what's the history of CEA? When was it created? Why was it created? What's the mission?
CEA was actually founded back in 2016 based off a Hobby Lobby case, the famous Hobby Lobby case of 2014, that took many years to get through the Supreme Court. And as you can imagine, millions of dollars to defend their rights. And when they successfully won the case, we had a couple co-founders, but one of them being Peter, General Counsel Hobby Lobby, said most Christian business owners wouldn't have the ability or the funding or the means to be able to defend themselves. So they said we need to create an alliance so we can come together underneath one alliance. And as we win these cases, we can provide injunction protection for the members. So that's why CEA was found. A lot of people ask me, what is injunction protection? So if you're not legal courts, so I have to explain it. But basically, we go in under CEA's name, and we, with our partners of Alliance Defending Freedom, we go in and we litigate the case, and we go through the courts. Our members are anonymous, so everything's done in my name and CEA's name and ADF as the attorneys. And then it's a lengthy process, but when we win the case, we ask for injunction relief for all of our members. So what that means is no matter what state that you live in, a perfect example of a case we won last year, late-term abortion case. Employers were forced to pay for late-term abortion and an insurance policy. Does a lot of things. It jacks up the cost of insurance. It also violates religious freedom, especially for Christian employers. Don't believe in late-term abortion. So when we won that case, all of our members now have injunction federal protection relief from that. So we can now provide the forms. They can go back to their insurance providers in their states. We we've got this injunction protection and they can apply it to their insurance. So we've won many, many cases in the last 10 years. We just had 3 new cases this year that we're engaged with. So that's the main reason why CEA was started and founded. And that activity is going strong.
Yeah, important and ongoing.
Yeah.
And that leads to my other question was, talk to me a little bit about some of these victories that you're most proud of. So you mentioned the late term abortion.
Right.
Warren, what are some other things that CEA has been involved in that makes you feel like, hey, we're really doing our mission here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we won, and all of this you can see on our website. We've got the full summary, so people that are interested and want us to see all the legalese of it. I can't remember it all; it's very long.
Yes.
But go to the website, and we keep it, well updated. Our active cases that we're currently litigating, we can't speak about until we receive some form of judgment. But the ones that we have won are there. And we won the transgender surgery case last year. So same thing, it's late term abortion, insurance policy related. You don't have to pay for transgender surgeries. We recently won some cases as it related to the use of pronouns. So it was an EEOC rule that, an employee could sue you if you didn't use proper use of pronouns.
Yes.
So we just recently settled that case and received protection for our members. And there's about 8 of them on our website right now. So
that's really powerful. And I know sometimes, you guys have the legislative agenda you're advancing with the Biblical Business Index, but to have that legal protection and to have somebody who's out there in the courts fighting for truth, justice, and the American way is so important. How would you say, or what companies typically reach out to you or become members of the CA? Is it big companies? Is this a little bit of everybody? What's the membership look like?
Yeah, so we have individual companies all the way up to 40,000 employee companies, right? Our injunction protection step in at that 15 plus employees, right? So that's really our sweet spot because that's when the states mandate insurance, right? If you're underneath that, the work that we do is not really going to apply. But a lot of people join because they want to grow or they want to just be access to the network. But our sweet spot is, really 25 plus.
Yep.
That's when state regulations start to burden the business. Obviously, the injunction stuff, the litigation, and that's really kind of all on the back end. So in the past, people would join us when they were facing potential litigation. They would hear about us, and that's just too late, right? So we need people to join us way before litigation happens. And so that kind of stuff's really on the back end. But on the front end, in the last 15 months, we launched the Center for Biblical Business, which the Biblical Business Index is part of. But now we've moved in on the Hill and into all 50 states. We're tracking legislation on the front end, and we're getting in and we're being able to advocate for things that we can move the needle on, such as reversing bad policy, which we're really working on most on right now, reversing bad regulations. And so we're really working with the White House, the federal level and state level lawmakers to educate them on what Christian employers would like to see happen.
Yeah.
So if we can reverse those and we can create good policy, then we won't have as much litigation on the back end.
Right.
But we all know there's 160,000 pieces of legislation introduced in 26 alone this year.
Wow.
Right? And so we use this expansive software to go through everything, pick out our issues, and we try to bring them first and forefront to the CEOs. But Christian CEOs tend to be so busy making a payroll, managing their business. So one of my challenges, as the president, is I have to go out and have to say, they're like, why should I get involved in public policy? Why should I do this or do that? They're just so busy. And I said, because the lawmakers need to hear your voice. If they don't hear the voices of the correct employers, then they don't know how to vote, right? And so we're doing matchmaking events at state by state where we bring in CEOs of that state to meet with their lawmakers at that state level. That's creating a voice and a 2-hour reception. And then we award those that are with us. I give them awards, which is, we want to reward them. And we put press out about them. We want the press and I want all the public to know they're doing good work and that they're with us on our values. And not trying to turn them into activists, but we do need their voices heard. Yeah. And so we really need all CEOs of Christian faiths that believe to come under the alliance. The larger the numbers, the stronger our voice. And that's just the way politics work. And people don't like P word.
Right.
But we're able to move mountains with very little. So
yeah, we make a strong case for it. Let's pause for a second. And how do people join? They go to your website. What's your website? How would they find you and join the group?
Yep. So just go to ChristianEmployersAlliance.org and join us. There's a big join us button on the front page, and you just pick individual application if you're an individual, or business application. And you go through and you fill out the number of employees. For the injunction protection, all of our members have to sign the statement of faith. It's the document that the court recognizes, hey, we're all of the same faith. We all believe in these same things. So all of our members sign that statement of faith, and it comes back processing. There's some research done to make sure it's valid Christian organization and things like that. And then membership, you get a membership letter. That'll come to you. And the key important thing to know is you can join tomorrow, Kurt.
Yep.
And you get all of our injunction protections from the last 10 years.
Wow.
So that piece of it's really a no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm proud to be a member. But I want to talk about you a little bit. You're relatively new. You said about a year ago, maybe a little more. What's it mean to you personally to get to run a Christ-centered organization like this in today's environment?
Well, I think it's part of a calling, for me. I was a CEO for a long time. I sold my company back in 2008. I had a Microsoft technology company, and I was part of C12 at that time. I laugh. I call myself an original because I was part of the original group of C12, not to date myself. Very early on as a CEO, I got engaged, and I could see the importance of being part of leadership groups like that, bringing CEOs together. And there was just a handful of us back then. There really wasn't what you see today. And then after I sold my company and I got recruited in politics, I was really bold on Christian business issues, small business concerns, things that I saw that were going on. I spent a lot of time on the Hill the last couple of years working for many conservative organizations. So when I got the call from somebody that knew me that said, hey, would you come over and interview for this president's role over at CEA, it was like a homecoming because I got to get back with my C12 guys, the convene guys, all the different leadership folks I'd met over the years, and then bring in all my public policy background to do the work that they needed. And so I really felt it was a calling on my life, and God prepared me for all the things that I was going to face coming here. And we have lots of issues.
Yeah.
So
lots of them. And I think, I was thinking about CEOs who are listening, Christian CEOs, they want to be bold, but they also want to be wise about running their business from a Christian perspective. What's a practical first step? What's something that every business owner should think about? Okay, I want to run a Christ-centered company. What's the first thing I should think about?
Well, obviously prayer, right? So when I was a CEO, I was on my knees before every payroll. So I admit that boldly. Running a business is really, really tough. And it takes a toll. But get engaged with an organization. One of the things CEA, and there's other organizations, the leadership organizations are doing this, but, get your board docs together in order, get your governance docs together in order. The way that you write those governance docs, based on your state laws, because all the laws are different in each state, so you have to understand that, can protect you from litigation. Have your statement of faith in place. So when your employees are hired, that they sign that statement of faith, they know that they're joining you. They know what your beliefs are. If you're going to have monthly prayers, you're going to have daily prayers. If you're not going to pay for transgender surgeries, put it in your statement of faith and have your people sign it. It's the number one thing that can help prevent litigation for you. And then joining something like CDA, all of those laws change constantly. And so we keep an updated all 50 employment laws. Join our HR cohorts, you'll be kept up on all of those laws. So when you have to update your employee manuals, your statement of faith, you can always be compliant. You can always be up to the latest and greatest, right? So we see that the most. And I actually spoke to a member this morning. All of our members, you're not going to hear me say their names. They're all anonymous. Right? Unless they don't want to be. So it's a safe zone for people that might not want to be as bold, but they want the protections. And then we have those that are willing to use their names and will step out into testimony. But I was in a meeting this morning and I got a call from a new member that's only been on board for about 2 months and had an employee sue his company because he wanted to turn to a girl and he wanted the company to pay for his transgender surgery. So he wound up hiring a law firm to go and represent him. And the case is on hold right now, but it's going through the state Supreme Court process. It's going all the way up, costing him a lot of time. So far, not so much money. He's got somebody that's donating services from the legal perspective, but just a lot of time, a lot of paperwork. And he called this morning, for some help and started telling me his story. And as well, first off, you're federally protected under the injunction protection. And he was a new member, so he didn't know that. And they said, well, how come my lawyers didn't know that? And I just said, well, get them on the phone, send me an email. We'll get them on the phone with our attorneys that won the injunction protection, and let's see how we can help shut this down. So these are real things that CEOs are battling across the country. We have found, Kurt, just very recently, as we're launching this Biblical Business Index, we're seeing just hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars being funded into the state legislatures. And it's all based on, gay marriage stuff, not feeling comfortable being in a company that does prayer, that they don't feel comfortable being part of. So they feel that they're being discriminated against. The transgender case, I told you about that this morning. And we're seeing this in every state. We're seeing people in Florida. We're seeing people in New Hampshire, all across the country experiencing this.
Being prepared ahead of time, so important for this. So I think that then creates, as a Christian leader, we're always trying to balance conviction, particularly in these areas that you're talking about, with compassion. And how do you think we should think about this as Christian business leaders? How do we balance these convictions, but also with compassion for people who are clearly going through something in their life and need our help?
Right. And, I just go back to the statement of faith. I believe in transparency, and transparency always creates the best trustful relationships, right? And so when you're building your company, you've decided to come out as a Christian employer, be bold with your faith, have your employee documents, your manuals, and your statement of faith prepared so people know the type of company that they're joining, and be transparent with those folks. And we have a ton of members that cross that bridge every day. They say, well, we don't hire all Christians, right? We want other people to be engaged with us too. And so, I always just tell them having those documents is important and being as transparent, and then they can't accuse you of trying to cast the wool over their eyes, right?
Right.
Or trying to force them to start doing a Bible study that they didn't know that they were going to have to do or be invited to, right? And so transparency is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's do a little future scoping a little bit, looking ahead to 5 or 10 years, some of the stuff that you're seeing right now. What do you think is at stake? What's the biggest risk for Christian employers here as you look ahead? Maybe also what gives you hope right now? So sort of a two-part question.
Right. Well, I'll start with the hope first.
Yeah.
Because we're in a positive administration right now, not perfect, but a positive administration for our religious freedom issues, right? And also business issues, right? And wanting to bring manufacturing back to America and all of these things that are going on. But not everybody's going to agree with a lot of all of the policies, but we are in a really positive environment. So we're hopeful that we can continue to remain in that positive environment. But as we're looking ahead at the 2026 midterms right now, specifically as it relates to the House and the Senate, it's not all rosy. It's not a positive. It's actually looking a little bleak, depending on who you listen to those days. And so, we have to remain watchful. We have to be diligent. And when we're in a positive environment, we have to make the changes as fast as we can, like we are right now, recognizing that there's going to be a time in the very near future that it's going to switch back.
Yeah.
And the importance and the strength of the alliance at that time is what's most important. And I always tell CEOs, Christian CEOs specifically, we know how this ends.
Yeah.
Right? We all share that same belief. We know how this ends. And so we can't be fearful. The fear comes from the devil.
Yep.
It does. And we can't operate in fear. So we need people to, join the alliance, come together, and stand right for our Judeo-Christian country, and do it in a fearless way. So that's kind of our biggest concern right now. We see a lot of fear that came out of the last administration.
Mm-hmm.
We all experienced it, increased IRS audits.
Right.
Saw a lot of violations of our religious freedoms, and it happened fast.
Yes.
And those things all still exist there. It's just been put on pause.
Yeah.
And it takes time for us to reverse the policy, to codify all of the executive orders the president's coming out. It has to go through the Congress process. It has to go through this legal process. So it takes time. And we're gonna, we're hopeful to change as much as we can, but be cognizant that it's not going to happen in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So we still have a lot to work through.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It just seems like overnight. And I don't know if it was because President Biden just wasn't watching because he was dealing with his health issues and mental capacity issues. And so all the bureaucrats who might have been restrained by political pressures now felt like they could do anything they wanted.
Right.
And so it did come on pretty quickly, and it did feel almost overnight like, as a Christian employer, I better keep my mouth shut if I want to keep my business. And I better not share what I think about vaccination or what I think about organizations like Black Lives Matter, or what I believe about hiring person for merit, not for some sort of quota system. And it just happened. And then Trump, of course, has been aggressive in fixing the problem. So some of us, myself included, I get worried about, well, Trump's only here through 2028. We might see a replacement in somebody like J.D. Vance. I think the best argument for an organization like CEA is we might feel good because Trump's put a stop to a lot. And maybe someone succeeds him in office that'll continue to protect Christian employers. But there's also a good chance we get somebody worse than Joe Biden. And it's at those moments you need to be prepared and be ready, because it could come on so quick once more.
Right. No, absolutely. I agree with you. We think this is the time to catapult pull for CEA. So we're in really hyper growth mode. Yeah. And a lot of the ways that we've done that, we've gone out to all of the Christian leadership organizations in the country, like C12 Leadership, Convene, and 94X. Mm-hmm. I just met another person, this morning at the conference that you and I are at right now, that had 120 members. And so we've been reaching out. NRB, we had a meeting with NRB yesterday to bring in. And so we're in the process of moving all of these members that are members of these organizations and allowing them to automatically become CEA members, just so we have the injunction protection in place. So we believe this is our time to really catapult our growth, which will make us that more powerful when we go into a less positive environment, right? Yeah. So catapulting the growth and numbers matter. How many employees are you representing? What's the size of your companies? These things matter when you're on the Hill and you're trying to encourage somebody to vote in a certain way. Right. And you're coming up against the U.S. Chamber that says, no, we all have to vote this way. We've got hundreds of thousands of members. And so, it's just kind of how it works. But I'm hopeful. We have a ton of really staunch believers working at the state levels and at the federal levels. And when we meet with the senators and the congressmen, they tell us, if we could just hear from your Christian CEOs once in a while, mm-hmm. we would vote your way. We believe in what you believe. We just don't know what you want because you don't ever come and meet with us. Yeah. You never talk to us, right? And so we really need to get our CEOs activated. All of and I hate to use the word left, but all of the people that are left-leaning on policies as it relates to business, the biggest companies in the country have come together underneath these chambers, and they're the ones dictating policy. Mm. And the Christian CEOs are being left out. Yes. Right. And I said, so if they're willing to do it, why wouldn't we be willing to do it and stand for our beliefs? Yeah. Right. So that's my call to everybody.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point. For 2 years, I worked for the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. Okay. One of the largest chambers in the country. And I realized about halfway through the tenure that the way they operated was greater amount of dues were paid for by the larger employers. And so a small company might be a member annually of the Indiana Chamber for $500. But Salesforce and Eli Lilly and Cummins were paying tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes more. And so all of the policy positions of the Indiana Chamber were coming out of these large companies who had absolutely not at all the same interests I had as a small business, a Christian-owned company. 1 year, the Indiana Chamber's number one issue, it wasn't tax relief, it wasn't regulatory reform, it wasn't protecting employers in the way you're talking about. Their number one issue was legalizing gay marriage. And I thought, is this the chamber we're talking about? Is this what I'm for? And so I think you bring up an important thing. Some business owners think, I'm protected because the chambers of commerce, they're here to protect the interests of business owners. But that's not really true. It's not certainly for Christian business owners.
They've changed a lot, the chambers.
Yeah. And so I know some of you out there are thinking right now, I'm a member of my local chamber. Why do I need to be a member of the Christian Employers Alliance? And I think that's an important reason.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. I tell people that don't understand all the work we do, because it is complicated, and especially if you don't operate in the environment and the world that we operate in. But I tell people not to promote the NRB, but, we are for Christian employers, but the NRB is for gun owners, right?
Right.
And some of our board members say the same thing, and Peter will say, I don't want to go to their events. I don't want their merchandise and all the things. I give to them because I know my gun rights are protected.
Yes.
And so, getting CEOs to recognize that we're just protecting their First Amendment rights. We're on watch. We're tracking thousands of pieces of legislation, picking out the things that are going to impact us the most, the things we see moving through the state legislatures, and the things we see moving, we can jump on right away in an advocacy format, and we don't have any other organization in the country doing that right now. So.
Yeah. Really powerful. Well, I wanted to do our last question be something completely different.
Okay.
As we end here, one of the things that we work on a lot with our business owners that we work with is understanding the importance of relationships. That we spend so much time thinking about things like, how can I make Facebook advertising be better, or how can I increase my marketing, or should I be sending mail, or should I be hiring more salespeople? But we put a lot of value in meeting other Christian business owners, other people who can support you, who can refer business your way, doing business with each other. Every one of us has a story of a person we met at one point that because we met them, we got connected into the right place. Maybe God used them. We sometimes refer to them as sort of $1 million relationships, right? Everyone I bet has one of this, right? Like maybe it's the person who told you should apply for CEA. Mm-hmm. But in your experience, is there someone that you met, maybe a mentor, somebody who supported you through the years, who ended up being such a valuable relationship for you in your career as you advanced?
So that's a great question. And you probably don't even know this about me. So I grew up in the foster care system. And I grew up in 15 different homes before the state of California emancipated me. I was only 16 years of age. And I've been working every day since. So I don't have in my life, and the honest truth, I didn't have great leaders that taught me how to pray or take me to church. And when I was young and I got emancipated and I was kind of on my own, I had some family members around I could go visit and things like that, but not a typical family environment. And I just built a relationship with God because of a priest that I met. And it was actually a friar in San Diego. Back then they were called friars, and they still wore brown robes.
Yeah.
I'm dating myself. But a friar gave me some words as I was in the foster care system, and he said, people haven't found your side, but God always has. And I said, those words stuck with me like glue. They still to this day. I remember those few words and it stuck with me. And I was like, really? And I said, so I immediately found that I had a father that I never thought could I have. And I started praying, and I didn't know how to pray. I hadn't grown up in church. And so I would write him notes every day. And later on, I wrote a book called My God Box. And it was about all of these notes that I had, and years later going back and seeing the answers. But, for me, when I built my relationship with God, he just guided me. He taught me how to forgive all the people that had harmed me and put me in foster care. For example, he taught me how to forgive my parents, which I thought I would never forgive. I was full of hatred. And, that friar sent me to God, and God just took care of it. And to be able to come out of that environment with just complete forgiveness and love, and I still, try to communicate with my family members. It's broken. Yeah. We don't hang out together. We don't do family holidays together or anything like that. Right. But I'll send flowers on birthdays, and send a text every once in a while thinking about you. But I said I was able to do all of that because of the friar that introduced me to God. And so that's my most powerful thing. Along the way, just joining CEA a year ago, I had a wonderful mentor that popped up out of nowhere who sat on our board, Al, who's also a member, who was involved in hiring me. And when we went to watch this biblical business index and I came with this plan, they all looked at me like I was an alien, like, what is this? Right. A biblical business index, like, what is this? Like, it made no sense to anybody. Mm-hmm. And even Fred and I, that were working on it, we were a little bit, where's this all coming from? Yeah. And Al just stepped up and he believed in it. And he said, the Holy Spirit has spoken to me. He says what we're supposed to do. So he stepped up as the first funder, challenged all of the other board members to fund and allow what we've had created today. And so he's been a real big force of nature recently in my life of being able to launch this Biblical Business Index. So God just keeps placing different people at different times in your life, right? But
I love the story of the priest, because so many times as people of faith, when we think, well, we want to impact somebody for Christ, we think we got to do something dramatic. We take all this responsibility on ourselves. And Sometimes it's just a simple phrase of sharing God's love with somebody that makes an impact on their life. That's it's a perfect
Yeah, no, I love it.
perfect story. Well, thank you, Margaret, so much for being on the show. For those of you who are listening, thank you for giving us 30 minutes of your time today. If you loved what you saw today, make sure and go check out the Christian Employers Alliance. Join the Alliance. I'm a member, highly recommended. And also like and subscribe so you see more of these episodes. Until next time.